So you have decided to get your inspection body accredited. Good. Now, I am going to be honest with you from the first sentence. Accreditation is not a document exercise. I have watched bodies spend 9 months writing beautiful manuals and then fail on the day because nobody could show an assessor and inspector actually inspecting. In this video, I am going to walk you through the real path, from the first decision you make to the certificate on the wall, in the order it actually happens, and I will tell you where bodies lose time, because that part is very predictable. One quick thing before we start, and then I will leave you alone about it. Everything I am about to walk you through, we have already built for you. There is the full ISO IEC 17020 2026 edition documentation kit, 3 separate checklists, one for implementation, one for your internal audit, and one for the accreditation audit itself, and a complete online training course if you want to go deeper than a video can take you. All the links are in the description below this video. Right? Now let's get into it. First, let's clear up something that costs people money. Accreditation is not certification. When a company gets certified, a certification body says its management system meets a standard. When you get accredited, an accreditation body says that you, as an inspection body, are competent to perform the inspections you claim to perform. It is a judgment about technical competence, not just about paperwork. That distinction changes the whole assessment. Your assessor will not only read your procedures, they will watch your inspectors work. And remember what Clause 5.1 now says? You will be assessed against ISO IEC 17020 2026 edition and, if applicable, against the requirements of the inspection scheme you operate under. 2 sets of requirements, not one. Step 1. And this is where most of your future pain is decided. Define your scope. Clause 5.2.3 says the inspection body shall define and document the inspection activities for which it conforms to this document. And the note tells you exactly what that means. The general field and range of inspection, so the categories of products, processes, services, or installations, the stage of inspection, and where applicable the regulations, schemes, standards, or specifications containing the requirements you inspect against. Write this too narrowly and you cannot sell the work. Write it too broadly and you must demonstrate competence for every single line of it, with an inspector observed doing it. Be ambitious, but only where you can produce a competent observed inspector. Step 2. Settle your independence type and do it before you write a single procedure, because it determines your organizational structure. Annex A is normative and gives you 2 options. Type A, which has 4 conditions you must meet in full, and Type Non-A, which is defined simply as a body that does not meet those 4. And do not miss the note under Clause 5.1. An inspection body can meet different independence requirements for different inspection activities. So this is a decision per activity, not one label for the whole company. If you land in Type Non-A, you owe 2 things: safeguards, giving adequate segregation of responsibilities and accountabilities, and proof that the same person never both performs the other activity and inspects the same item. Step 3. Gap analysis. Go through all 5 requirement clauses honestly. Clause 4. Impartiality and confidentiality. Clause 5. Independence, legal entity, liabilities, and organization. Clause 6. Personnel, facilities, and equipment, and externally provided products and services. Clause 7. Everything from contract review to inspection reports, appeals, and complaints. Clause 8. The management system. Do it requirement by requirement and write down the evidence you would show, not just yes or no. If your answer to a requirement is a procedure that exists but has never been used, that is a gap. An assessor does not want to read that you have a monitoring program. They want the monitoring records from the last 12 months. Step 4, and this is the one that fails bodies on assessment day: competence. Clause 6.1.2 demands a documented process covering 6 things: determining competence requirements, selecting personnel, initial training, authorization, monitoring of competence, and continual training. 6 stages, all documented. Clause 6.1.4 requires the initial training to include an induction period and a mentored working period with authorized and competent personnel. Clause 6.1.5 requires monitoring at a defined frequency against a program, and Clause 6.1.7 is the blunt one. Each inspector shall be observed performing inspection unless there is sufficient supporting evidence that they continue to perform competently. Job titles prove nothing. Observation records prove everything. Step 5, and this is where impatience costs people a whole assessment cycle. You must run the system before you apply, because the standard asks for records that only exist over time. You need at least one complete internal audit that covers every requirement of the standard across all fields of inspection in all premises where inspection is managed or performed. That is Clause 8.6.2c, and it is very explicit. You need at least one management review, and Clause 8.7.2 lists 15 separate inputs it must consider. And you need real entries in your impartiality threat monitoring, because Clause 4.1.3 requires that monitoring on an ongoing basis, including the relationships of your personnel. An empty register is not evidence of no threats. It is evidence of no monitoring. Step 6, the assessment. It usually comes in stages. First, a document review, often off-site, where the assessor reads your management system against the standard. Then an office assessment, where they go through records, competence files, impartiality monitoring, appeals and complaints, corrective actions. Then the part that decides everything, the witnessed assessment. Your inspector performs a real inspection and the assessor watches, not a simulation, not a description. This is where the assessor forms their judgment about your technical competence. You will get nonconformities. Almost everyone does. What matters is the root cause analysis and the corrective action. And Clause 8.5.2 spells out exactly what that must contain. Close them properly, and the accreditation decision follows with your scope schedule attached. Let me save you some months. Here is where bodies actually lose time. Applying before the system has produced any records, so the assessor has nothing to sample. Claiming a scope wider than the observed competence you can evidence, which forces a scope reduction at the worst possible moment. Impartiality registers with no entries in them. No evidence that your data collection and reporting system was validated, which is now an explicit requirement under Clause 7.5.1, and it is new in this edition, so a lot of bodies simply have not built it yet, and corrective actions that correct the symptom without ever determining the cause, which Clause 8.5.2c requires you to do. None of these are hard. They just take calendar time you cannot compress at the end. That is the whole path. Choose the body, define the scope, close the gaps, build the competence evidence, run the system long enough to have records, then get assessed. If you would rather not build the management system from a blank page, the documentation kit gives you the whole thing in editable form, and the implementation checklist walks you clause by clause, so nothing is missing when the assessor arrives. There is a checklist built specifically to rehearse the accreditation audit, and the online training course covers the standard end-to-end. Links are all in the description. Tell me in the comments where you are in this process right now and what is blocking you. I answer those. And subscribe, because I am working through this whole standard on this channel,